it's Stephanie and Inez, and we are with the Cole team at Compass. We hope everybody is doing great. We are coming to you today to talk about the market.
Ooh, the market.
The market. And normally we do a monthly session where we'll talk about numbers, and we've got it all here for you. We're still going to share it online so y'all can check it out. But there's really some interesting learnings that we wanted to take a minute and point out to you, and then of course talk about probably our top 3 challenges that we're having and we're seeing others have in this market right now, regardless of how good you hear it is.
There is good and bad to everything, and the pendulum always goes this way, right? And so there are some great benefits, but there's also some things to be mindful of, and it's even more important to have an expert on your side to help you navigate.
Definitely. And I think where we'll start out, and how we always start out with the numbers, is interestingly enough, the number of closed sales in all of the counties that we work with. So everywhere from Forsyth to Dawson to Milton to Johns Creek, where we're at right now, you name it. The number of closed transactions are up versus a year ago.
Keeps going up. And
yes. So, but everyone's saying there's not enough houses to be sold, yet we're up. So very interesting.
Well, and the houses, I think a lot of times too, this is where it does pose that concern or challenge, I think, for buyers, and making sure that you have someone that's plugged in to the neighborhoods, to the area, because this is when it's really a benefit. This is when the 20 plus years of specializing in these areas are a benefit to us, because we know who to call. Yes. We know the neighbors to ask. We know all the things to say, like, hey, or we've spoken to people 6 months ago or a year ago that maybe when the world started being a little, upside down,
just a little,
decided not to list. Maybe we don't mind giving them a call and saying, hey, I know a year ago wasn't the right time. How about today?
And I think we talk a lot about, like, where are all these people coming from? Because again, it's more sales than a year ago. So it's really, now we've become an area that people are seeking out. And we're so lucky. We're so lucky to be in an area that people want to be, even though it's freezing right now. Right. Maybe it'll scare some people away. But it is a beautiful area. So,
it is really nice. You forget. Do you have moments where, like, people are like, I just absolutely need to be in, like, the South Forsyth, I really want to be in, I'm like,
or this school district, or this.
Look, that's where we live.
Right. Yes,
like,
exactly.
wow, that's where we are.
Lucky.
But it's a lot of people, right? So our entire team is working with a huge, more than normal amount of buyers from out of state.
Absolutely. And we're working really hard, and like you were touching on, the things that we're doing for these really like 20 plus buyers that we're working with right now, and over half are out of state at this point. So like Inez said, it's calling on neighbors, it's calling on past clients. We've got people, we've been lucky to sell thousands of people homes, which is pretty cool to be able to say, and they're everywhere. So we're able to really tap into that in our network of agents and such to try to dig out those listings that are not on the market yet. I think that's been
right. You cannot sit at home and wait for something to hit FMLS.
You can't.
Or wait for it to come on. You can't. Those days are gone. And so it's one of those things, right? So everything's really, the market is booming. It's very competitive. There are great things, but it is one of those things where those days you've got to be willing to reinvent. You've got to be willing to continue to challenge yourself and find ways to reinvent, because it's going to keep going. It's going to keep evolving. The market's not slowing down anytime soon. And so if you are not ahead of the curve, watching it and going with it, you're going to be left behind.
And while we were setting up for this, I got a call from one of my clients who's literally living with their parents right now and their 2 children, and something just popped on. So we've been texting about it, and that's where I'm going after this. You've got to be the first one in, and you've got to be with a team that's willing to put you first as well. So we have a whole live series about it. Maybe you'll have seen it if you haven't, check it out, but it goes into everything into detail. But I do think one of our top 3 challenges is definitely limited inventory, like we're talking about here. So just looking for new and creative ways, like Inez was saying, is really paramount right now. Another thing that we're seeing from limited inventory,
appraisals,
yes.
appraisals.
And just to kind of back it up a little bit, what that means, if it's not a cash offer, the lender is going to have to order an independent appraisal. Some of those are being waived. I will say, if you want to be with a very strong lender, if you're putting enough down, there's the lender partners we're working with, we're seeing more and more of those be waived, which is awesome. That's really good. It makes you competitive.
And to that note, with the lender, it is super duper important that just like we are available constantly and all the time when our clients need us, get a lender that is able to really, that's there, that doesn't work banker hours, that really is available, because when you see that perfect home, when you see your next home, you've got to be ready to roll. You've got to be able to do it. And so if your offer, if we're up against multiple bids and we need to have that, can you waive appraisal? Can you waive, like, how far are you with the contingency of financing, all that stuff? And it's a Saturday and your guy doesn't return your call till Monday, you could lose that house.
It's really too late. And most likely what we've seen on the flip side, on the seller side, is we've seen a lot of cash offers. So it's like, how does a financing offer, you know, compete with cash? And we've won some for our buyers. We've won plenty, but it's because of good, strong lender partners that are willing to call you back or willing to make a special call to the buyer or the buyer's agent to say, these guys are golden and we're going to be able to take them to the finish line. And maybe they're already all the way full, you know, you get all the way full through approvals. Thank you.
Yeah, I got you, girl. I got you.
Thank you. That's all we got to do too. It's not a one-man show for sure.
No, but you do. You've got to be able to, and there are ways, and there absolutely are ways that the seller, that the buyer can still protect themselves.
Absolutely.
And still make it a win-win for both, but make it competitive and attractive for the sellers to choose that buyer. So it's just being able to navigate through the balancing act, because everyone always thinks, oh, it's so great, but there's always, nothing is 100% everything.
Very
like
true.
it's all about balance.
It is. And kind of on that note, you know, we were representing a seller. They got multiple offers this past weekend. One was $25,000 higher than the other one. Nothing had sold anywhere near there, but they had an appraisal contingency. The other offer was stronger financially, and, you know, maybe didn't have due diligence, didn't have a lot of the contingencies that this other one had. So we went with this one. We went with the one that's going to cause the least amount of stress and the sure thing, and that's what the seller wanted to do. And it really did make sense, because we knew at the end of the day, because they were putting down such a limited amount, there was not going to be a waiver. It was just a, you know, throw an offer out there, see if we can stick. And then we're seeing a lot of buyers where then they get the property, and Sarah on our team had this weekend. She had her client was putting an offer on. There was like, I wish Sarah was here, she could tell us, but like 5-10 offers on this property. The first one, she didn't get it. The first one ended up bowing out. So her person got it because they were the backup offer. So we're seeing a lot of that where people are just throwing out offers to just see what sticks and that's not being serious.
Right. And that's why when you represent the seller, it's important that you help them to navigate through that, because highest sale price doesn't always equal best.
It's true.
Right. And so you've got to help your client and navigate through that and educate them on what can happen, because then they could miss out, because there was another situation where that happens, but then the second offer, when they went back, because the original offer backed out, the second one had already found a house.
Yes, that happens too.
Right, and it goes fast, and then now you're back to square one, unfortunately. So again, it's all, just like we are not one-sided and one-dimensional, neither is the market. Neither is selling or buying a home. There's many moving pieces to it. You can't just think one way.
Yeah. And then even recently, all of this, you guys, is really in the last couple of weeks. I mean, the market, as everyone's heard, has taken a shift, but it has shifted again. So from an appraisal standpoint, we were talking about an appraisal partner of ours in the last week that did a couple independent appraisals. Those were ordered by cash buyers. Otherwise, you have no choice. So they had the choice. And, you know, in speaking with him, it was just really interesting. And he even said just how difficult it is in their field, because you're only almost as good as the last home that sold, plus maybe a little bit, right?
Not almost, that is.
They're not, it is. And they're not really able to, they're not catching up yet. And then all of a sudden you've got the Z friend online, who last night, I kid you not, has just raised everybody's estimate, which is very coincidentally trying to get, I mean, they've got a whole nother business model they're trying to support. Right. So we could go on, that might be a whole nother thing.
That is a whole other thing.
There's so many shifts happening. You just need to make sure you're with the right people that are gonna take your offer serious and are gonna represent you the best that they possibly can.
There is, because the reality is there's always something that seems a little shinier or a little newer or a little, that's just the world that we're in, right? And so that's who we are. And so we just have to continue to provide. And that's why instead of just rattling off some stats, we thought it was important to just have a very honest, candid conversation about kind of what we know you're going through, what we're going through, and how we just will continue to move with it.
And so, so far our challenges, we have a lot of challenges. They're all good ones that we do have some answers to, though. So we talked about limited inventory. We've talked about appraisals. And then this is just a big one. And I don't know where we'll go with this because we have not scripted this at all.
Oh, no.
You couldn't tell, could you?
I don't know what she's about to say.
But just overall timing.
Oh.
So there's timing from a buyer perspective of being, I would say flexibility would be the number one thing from that perspective. And then from a seller, I'm just going to say it's where am I going to go? Like I would love to sell, but where am I going to go on the flip side? So let's talk buyer first and trying to be flexible and what that might look like.
So I think, remember, so it's all the circle of life. So that buyer might be living at home with their parents because they sold a couple of months ago. And so, but having the flexibility to be able to, it's short-term pain for long-term gain, right? And so you've got to think big picture. You've got to think of the marathon. It can't be a sprint because this is just, when you purchase a home, you're not buying it to be in it for a couple of months. You're buying it to be in it for a majority, 10 plus years.
Right.
This is where you're going to build your family. So if you have to be inconvenienced for a little bit, it stinks. Don't get me wrong. Nobody wants to move back home with mommy. Sorry, mom. But if that's what needs to happen. And even if, maybe you can use it as a vacation time. A lot of us are working virtually. A lot of us are going to school virtually. So maybe it is a good opportunity and time to take some time off. Get a little, it's off season. You can get a cabin at Blue Ridge pretty cheap right now, or just take some time. It's trying to make the best of the situation.
It really is, and really being flexible for that seller when you do find that when you do find the right home. And like we talked about, sort of when we talked about appraisals, it's not always being the highest price with a multiple offer. Sometimes it's what's going to make things most convenient for that seller. And if you have that to offer, that can mean a lot, especially kind of leaning into the seller part of it is where am I going to go? So if you could offer a seller that doesn't know where they're going to go time, that's probably worth a lot more. Maybe you're doing a closing that's 60 or 90 days out, or you're letting them lease back, close in 30, but let them lease back so you can, rates are great. They're still going to probably be great in 60, 90 days, but regardless, do something that makes it look really good for that seller.
Because there's people out there, maybe it's your perfect home, but those sellers want their child to finish the school year.
Yeah, we see a lot of that right now.
Right, but they recognize that it's a great time.
Right.
And if that's your perfect home, maybe if you can, stick it out to short-term pain, long-term gain.
Yeah. And the other timing thing I would say is, there's waiting it out, but there's also don't wait. If you see what you love, do it. And as a seller, I feel like we are in a brief moment of time that we're going to look back on, just like we looked back on other markets and be like, what happened in 2021? Because it is phenomenal. And if you are in a position to be able to take advantage of it, we would love nothing more than to talk to you about what we're experiencing, how we can help you, answer any of your questions, because I think that's the big holdup is I don't know where I'm going, and just what's going to happen in 3 months, 6 months. And we definitely have some thoughts on our team of what the rest of this year is going to bring that we're happy to share with you.
And as much as we want as many listings as possible, if everyone could just sell their homes, it'd be great. But
it would be great.
But having someone that can give you, don't talk to an agent, preferably the Cole team, but speak to someone and don't just look online, right? So just like we don't want to self-diagnose ourselves when we look at Google, we talk to a doctor. We're the doctors. Yeah. Don't go on the internet and assume that, hey, I'm going to be able to make, $50,000, $60,000 more, and because they have never been inside your home. They haven't done market. They haven't done any analysis. They haven't sold anything in your area. So just keep all of that in mind, because we want the sellers to be happy, and we want them to have realistic expectations, so it's a pleasant and good experience for everyone.
And never has there been a time more than now that I think if you're thinking about selling your house, you need somebody with experience.
Yes.
I mean, we've got COVID we're dealing with, we've got other things. Video has never been more important. The way your house is represented online has never been more important. So regardless if you're in our area and we might be an option for you, or you're outside of this area listening to this video, find somebody that's gonna, make your home a priority and really is investing in the marketing behind it, because without that, you're kind of just doing it blindly, and you're not giving it the full, 110% to make sure you're finding willing, capable buyers.
And if you're from out of town or you don't live in the area, I know that I've done it. I know there's an agent that asked to see this listing. FaceTime.
Yeah.
I've got a buyer who lives in Jersey, and we just FaceTime showings, and that's what we're gonna have to do, because he doesn't know, he can't just hop on a plane and come see a house, but if he waits a week, it's gone.
Yeah, or a few days even.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So if you or someone you care about is thinking about a move, we would love nothing more than to spend some time with you, have a quick call, grab a coffee virtually or in person. Anyway, take care. We would love to talk to you, and hit us up.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.